2000 presidential run still had Al Gore and Democrats smarting. His 2004 had many political observers scratching their heads. Yesterday, longtime consumer advocate Ralph Nader said he's running for the White House again. His reason, he claims people are disenchanted with the candidates, but voter turnout around the country is breaking records, and the amount of money raised so far is only about $200 million shy of 2004's overall fundraising, and we still have 8 months left to go. Now, back in 2000, Nader ran for president with the goal of getting the Green Party on the ballot and establishing a third party. So what's behind this year's run? Joining us right now is Ralph Nader, who's live from Washington, D.C. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
So you got to tell us, why are you entering the race, particularly so late in the game?
Well, it's made clear on our website, votenader.org, there are 10 major subject areas that are being totally ignored by the major candidates McCain, Clinton, and Obama. For example, they are opposed to single-payer health insurance, which a majority of the people and physicians in polls say they support. They don't want to do anything about all those investigations inside and outside the Pentagon on the bloated, wasteful military budget that's sucking tens of billions of dollars away from the necessities of the American people and putting it in these Lockheed Martin coffers. They are still not opposed to nuclear power, which can't raise private financing in Wall Street without a total government guarantee. That was in the recent energy bill enacted, instead of pushing for a national solar energy mission. And, of course, they ignore all kinds of other issues. Like
Okay, Ralph, let's look at some of these issues. First of all, some could argue on many of these issues that you're not exactly accurate on some of those insurance issues, whether they be about the nuclear plants. But let's not debate specifically all of those individual issues, but let's state the facts. There are people waking up across the country, whether they woke up yesterday or they woke up this morning, and they're saying, we have the greatest turnout in primaries that we've had in history, some of the greatest fundraising dollars ever. Why go into the mix when we have what some people argue may be the greatest political race that we have had in decades?
First of all, they're all corporate candidates. We can demonstrate that with their voting records, McCain, Obama, and Clinton. Second, a vast majority of the people didn't vote in those primaries. There'll be about 90 million people who will not vote in November. So why don't we have more diversity? Why don't we have more choice? Why don't we have more democracy, more freedom on the ballot? What is this giving America over to two political parties who have spoiled our election with crass use of corporate money, and who have spoiled the government
but wait a
so
second.
it doesn't respond to the people?
Yeah, but wait a second. Look at a guy like Senator Barack Obama and the money that he is raising, because you're saying corporate money. Let's not forget that when you look at the money that he raised in the month of January, that $36 million, the vast majority of that came from individuals like you and me, many of them who gave less than $100. In fact, it's almost the opposite. 200 of the 300,000 people who went online to give money were first-time givers with $100 or less.
You make a very good point, and that's the kind of contributions that are coming into our votenader.org. However, if you look at the special interest money he has raised from corporate lawyers, for example, from the securities industry, those come with strings attached, and he should not have done that because, as you say, he's able to raise a lot of money from ordinary people in small contributions. But I'm interested, since we're on Fox Business News, to talk about why so little has been done against the corporate crime wave in this country that Fox has reported in Wall Street Journal, Business Week, etc. You start out with the savings and loan scandal, then you go to the Enron Wall Street scandal that Attorney General Spitzer investigated. Now you have the subprime mortgage scandal and all those risky instruments, and we never have any reform coming out of Washington except Sarbanes-Oxley. And here's the point. It's going to happen again and again, and the taxpayers are going to be held with the bag. The consumers are going to be held to the bag. The pensioners and the investors will be held to the bag.
You are a consumer advocate. You've been one of the best in the business for years. You understand more than anybody that everything has a cycle. What you talk about the SNL, you talk about what's going on right now. I think fairly every candidate, Republican or Democrat, is talking about it. And the White House, you know, Washington, D.C., is trying to do something about it. You may not be happy with resolution, but people are talking about it. What's your solution to the subprime meltdown? What's your solution to what's going on to the bond insurers?
There's an important distinction here. They're talking about various proposals of relief. They're not talking about law enforcement to deter another cycle of corporate crime like we've been going through involving trillions of dollars. They're not engaging in law and order enforcement.
So how do you
do that? You increase the budget of the Justice Department. You strengthen the corporate criminal laws, which are very, very weak, slaps on the wrist. You get more authority to the Securities Exchange Commission, and you let the state attorney generals have more budget and prosecutors.
Aren't
it's the same old story.
Aren't you the one who's talking about cutting the budget?
If you same old story.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, listen, you will get far more fines from these corporate crooks. You'll have a much greater surplus. It'll all be self-funded by going after crime in the suites or the corporate crime wave that your profession has documented, but your government has not done enough about.
How are you going to get that surplus? Are you going to raise taxes? What are you going to do?
Well, no, fines. It's called fines. And some of these companies have been fined for antitrust violations, hundreds of millions of dollars. That goes into the general treasury when it should go into the law enforcement budget in order to relieve small investors, pensioners, workers, and consumers of these kinds of terrible frauds.
Ralph, why can't you just get on some shows, talk a little bit about the issues facing this country, have a dialogue with Americans without getting in the race? I mean, look, you know the people called you the spoiler. If you're a consumer advocate and you see consumers getting involved, and you have to admit, whether you say the primary numbers are not good at all, I mean, look at the amount of people who are showing up to listen to these presidential candidates speak. People are turning out. Look at the ratings on cable networks and network television. They're seeing a reaction in the debates. There's something going on in this country, isn't there?
Well, there is a greater turnout, but it's very modest in terms of the overall number of voters in this country who are sitting out all elections. I don't think there have been more than 25% turnout, for example, even in the most boisterous primary. But you labeled me spoiler neighbor there, Nader, and I resent that. That is trying to say that a small party or an independent candidate is somehow a second-class citizen.
No.
You have displayed political bigotry. You would never say that to the major candidates, and you, working for Fox News, would never have said when Fox News got underway that 2 networks were enough. You wanted diversity. So stop being politically bigoted and contend on the subject matter and the issues that the other parties are ignoring, including my recommendation.
Listen,
off of James Tobin's tax, the Council for Economic Advisor. Just a minute. My recommendation that you should shift some of the tax on human labor and put it on security speculation.
Ralph, listen, we welcome you here on the Fox Business Network anytime. When I brought up the spoiler term, that is what they called you in the 2000 election. I'm just asking you now, if you know that is what they suggested, do you not worry coming out there right now at a time where the race is very tight, that is how you will be labeled again? How do you differentiate, in essence, is what I'm asking you, this time around?
First of all, Gore won the election. Only in America can someone who comes in second, like George W. Bush, in the popular vote, become president. What happened in Florida is well known in terms of the shenanigans of Catherine Harris and Jeb Bush. And if you ask Gore, if he was on this program, you ask Gore why he isn't president, he'd say he did win, but it was taken from him. And let's get over this concept of spoiler. If we have an equal right to run for election, either none of us are spoilers or all of us are spoilers trying to take votes from one another. And do not ever designate as a news channel somebody with the word spoiler, because that indicates it's Fox News' world. You didn't have that in quotes. And that is a politically bigoted word against small party and independent Democrats.
Ralph, listen, I'm thrilled to have you on. I'm not labeling anybody. We are fair and balanced. We welcome the opportunity to have you come on and talk about a third party, talk about the independent bid. We want a political dialogue. We love a political dialogue. And we thank you very much for joining us this morning.
And stop using the word spoiler and log in to votenader.org to see what real political power is all about when it relates to the benefit of the American people.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.